Number 10 in the countdown is the kayak. Its true name is the hayak, but foreigners didn't know how to pronounce this word, and when they read it, they dubbed the unmanned boat a kayak. The hayak was used for over 2,000 years by the Inuit, with the exception of those in the most northern regions. A little too cold for it there. This small narrow boat was created by the Inuit in the Arctic region of Canada. It's a piece of ingenuity. The cockpit was closed to avoid the passenger from sinking if the craft were to capsize, something that was completely unique at the time. These crafted transportation boats were created with wood or whalebone frames and covered with stitched sealskin or other animal pelts. They were perfect for the transportation of goods, travel, and hunting, allowing Inuit means of exploring Arctic geography and landscape while also accessing natural resources and other communities of Inuits. Oral tradition tells us that this was not only an item of practicality, however, but also one of personal growth and connection to self and community. Today, the kayak is used by many for leisure, sports, tourism, and competition. Number 9 is baby bottles and formulas. The baby bottle has been found in a few northern indigenous clans' histories, Iroquois and Seneca being the prime examples. The baby bottle of the past is drastically different from the plastic and silicon model found in stores today. Water skins were used by ancient Egyptians and global indigenous colonies alike, but the indigenous inventors made some changes so as to use them to accommodate babies. First, they did not use goat skin like the Egyptians, but rather the dried then greased bag-shaped stomachs of their large prey like boars, bears, and buffaloes. Secondly, they learned to attach a bird quill on the end of the intestinal piece to act as a nipple to create the first baby bottle. According to the Iroquois historian Arthur C. Parker, the intestinal tube would be filled with a mix of pounded meats, berries, and nuts. It was cooked until the mixture inside turned into a warm paste or liquid. Another baby food or milk alternative was corn and water mixtures. Number 8 was better when we didn't have to pay rent for them. It's apartments. Indigenous colonies around the world executed the same idea. Many people residing in the same building, but in different ways. In Southern America, the Anasazi may have moved south after the warfare decimated their population, but their historic community still stands. The Anasazi were masters of the humble yet expansive identical apartments. Before the arrival of Europeans, indigenous peoples in Canada had their own building traditions. Differing from nation to nation depending on their purpose and function, the building traditions reflected the important aspects of indigenous peoples' cultures, societies, geographics, environments, and spiritual beliefs. In eastern woodlands, Iroquois, Haudenosaunee, Wendat, and others' characteristic dwelling was the longhouse, a metaphor for life wherein families gathered and ceremonies assembled. It looks as it sounds, long and narrow in structure and meant to house several families related through the female lineage. A village would oftentimes be a group of these longhouses surrounded by pole-based fences. Another example is the wigwams, which was generally housing 1 to 3 families and were used in eastern woodlands and subarctic regions. Wigwams were able to be disassembled and reassembled for those who moved with the season or with the hunting. Imagine that, you hate your neighbor, you can just pack up your whole house, head out. Number 7, let's check out the raised bed agriculture. One of the most famous examples in the Inca dynasty, historians and archaeologists were mind blown to discover the Incas understood water irrigation, underwatering, floating farms and gardens, and raised bed agriculture. The indigenous of South and Central America invented the technique of enriching soil and piling it to build raised garden plots called chinampas on swampy land and in lakes, a forerunner model now used for modern vegetable farming. Well, this practice spread from Mesoamerica to other indigenous colonies of South and Central America and then further. The Three Sisters, which are corn, beans, and squash's method of growing, showed up along the East Coast and Great Lakes of Canada. The raised beds allowed for control over the growing environment, something that wild planting could not. But unlike that style of row agriculture, the 3 plants were allowed to grow together, creating a microenvironment for ripe growth. The sisters were only to be segregated by blocks and mounds to keep them free from weeds. Scared of heights? Number 6 isn't, it's suspension bridges. That's right, in ancient times, people were constructing bridges. Wanna get stressed? Let's talk about the materials used. In South America, the Inca figured out how to weave certain mountain grasses and other plants into thick ropes that could be used to make bridges. The Incas were the only pre-industrial American culture to invent long-span suspension bridges, said to have rigged 200 plus bridges bridges across gorges and cliffs. In another rugged region, the Himalayans seemed to independently develop suspension systems at pretty much the exact same time, albeit they were different. But the Europeans didn't have the know-how until several centuries later after the Inca Empire fell. Embarrassing. Northwest BC is home to some suspension bridges made of wood systems. The best known is the bridge over the Buckley River at the Hagwagat Canyon. The design theory is similar to that of the Inca and Himalayan, the strongest point extending outwards from the edges and then a gangway tied to join the two halves in the center point. The physics of these historic bridges was something European and American engineers copied for our modern bridges in the early 20th century. You can visit the last standing suspension bridge made by the ancient Inca of South America in Peru, Canas Province. Dare you to walk across. Now that the cookies are out of the oven, it's time for you to go in. The Xray. It's a personal joke of mine that getting an Xray is having a limb microwaved, and funny thing is both the microwave and the Xray were invented on accident. But anyways, on November 8th of 1895, physicist Wilhelm Conrad Roentgen was in his lab experimenting on a vacuum tube covered in black cardboard when he noticed an incandescent green light escaped and projected onto a nearby fluorescent screen. Like Gatsby, he's entranced with the green light and experiments a little, learning it would pass through most substances but leave shadows of solid objects. He decides to call them X-rays as their rays of unexplained origins. So creative, these scientists. For some reason, he's like, let me point this weird ray at my hand, and discovered the glow allowed him to see past his skin to his bones, thus leading to the world's first X-ray. News spreads fast. Doctors in Europe and the States are using it to locate bullets, bone fractions, kidney stones, the whole shebang, and our boy Wilhelm gets the first physics Nobel Prize in 1901. But X-ray flourished with zero study of potential side effects from radiation exposure. Early use of X-rays was widespread and unrestrained, even to the degree that in the 1930s and 40s, shoe stores offered free X-rays so customers could see the bones in their feet. Now we're a little less rampantly stupid, better understanding of the risks of X-ray radiation, and have developed protocols to greatly minimize unnecessary exposure. Not a bad legacy for an accidental discovery. It's found in bananas and mold. It's penicillin. Before antibiotics, literally anything could smoke you. Minor infection, dead. Paper cut, dead. Bee sting, dead. You get it. Now, in 1928, Alexander Fleming comes back from holiday to realize he left a bunch of crap out that's now all moldy. But on a petri dish of bacteria, he finds mold on it, contained and stopped bacteria from growing. Jackpot. He soon identifies that mold produced as a self-defense chemical that could kill bacteria. He named the substance penicillin. Penicillin has a long journey. He first publishes findings, but peers show little interest. Undeterred, he enlists several chemists, top of their field, to help purify penicillin mold. None of them are able to succeed. So it was dubbed laboratory curiosity, and Fleming gave up on the attempts to purify it. 10 years later, Howard Florey and Ernest Chain uncovered Fleming's research and assembled a team of scientists to work solely on penicillin project. After years of trial, they developed a successful but inefficient process that produced pure penicillin and put it on trial. The Oxford laboratory opened a penicillin factory, and 6 women, known as the Penicillin Girls, were employed to farm a few precious milligrams of penicillin from it every week. US pharmaceutical companies were initially reluctant to commit to the large-scale penicillin production for its cost, but by the time the 1941 rolls around and they've joined the Second World War, they whipped their doors open and said, come on in, we got cash. From there, penicillin booms. The inferal beeping that echoes in your brain. Smoke detectors. So commonplace in homes and businesses and schools that we forget there was life before them. We forget that they're even there until it chirps. It's enough to turn a happy household into a war zone sometimes. Anyways, no matter how annoying changing that battery is, their invention has saved millions of lives. And having a working smoke detector in the home decreases your risk of dying in a fire by more than half. For that, you can thank Swiss physicist Walter Jaeger. In the 1930s, Jaeger was trying to invent a sensor that could detect gases and airborne toxins. Instead, his device registered the smoke from his cigarette because this was an era of smoking in your laboratory full of hazardous chemicals. As the alarm beep beep beeped at him, Jaeger realized this accidental invention was of the modern smoke detector. He changed his concept towards that and worked hard to ensure it registered any and all smokes before patenting and pitching. Some of the first people he showed it to are fire force workers who go bonkers for it. Beginning in the 1950s, smoke detectors are installed in industrial spaces. Their high cost for installation in homes just made it impossible. So technology advances, and finally it is possible because the cost is reduced in the 1970s, and then more than 12 million smoke detectors are sold by 77. Thank
God, because everything was flammable polyester and they smoked on their couches. Today, 9 in 10 homes have smoke detectors. Remember to check yours. It's the world's ugliest medical title, the Pap smear. So, Greek immigrant Saint Dr. George Nicholas Papanikolaou and his wife come to America and have a rocky start, but in 1914, he landed a part-time research role at the former New York hospital and soon moved to a full-time research position at Cornell University. George's first goal was merely track cellular changes that occur during a woman's menstrual cycle. Still, he conducted his research and he learned that a patient had uterine cancer and that her cancer cells were simple enough to examine under a microscope. In the early 1900s, cervical cancer was the leading cause of cancer deaths in women, claiming 40,000 lives every year. So it was born, the Pap smear, a procedure used to check for cancer while looking at a slide of cells extracted from inside the woman's uterus. He presented his initial findings in 1928, but they weren't widely accepted in the medical community. He continued to publish his breakthrough findings, and it took more than 20 years for that work to be accepted. This work is now the diagnosis of uterine cancer by Pap smear, and it was published in 1943. The test detailed how normal and abnormal cells could be viewed under microscope to be classified. It quickly became the standard for cervical cancer screening, and it is still the primary screening tool for cervical cancer today. It's estimated the Pap test has reduced the mortality rate of cervical cancer by 70%. So if you have a uterus, it may suck tremendously, but go get your tests. And last but certainly not least by any means was the implantable pacemaker. An engineer called Wilson Grayback was building something to record the rhythm of people's heartbeats. He reaches into his toolbox and accidentally pulled out the wrong bit of his kit and fixed it to his circuit. The circuit pulsed for 1.8 milliseconds and then stopped for 1 second. As luck would have it, that is the exact right rhythm needed to make a pacemaker, and exactly what was needed to replace the bulky, painful pacemaker machines at the hospital that were in use at the time. They were like literally shoeboxes on your chest. By running electrodes directly from his new machine into the muscle of the heart, Grayback's artificial pacemaker could keep a patient's heart on track indefinitely, and the compact size allowed people with heart problems to lead full, active lives without the fear of side effects like before. In 1961, there were about 100 people using the new device. Now 3 million people have an implanted pacemaker. His invention was one of the most important of the 20th centuries, giving a renewed lease on life to millions of people in the decades after his serendipitous discovery. In the 1970s, he went on to develop a corrosion-free lithium battery so that pacemakers could run for 10 continuous years instead of 2, and the electronic savant worked into his senior years, developing treatment procedures for AIDS, a solar-powered canoe, a low-temperature nuclear fusion reactor. Grayback claimed in 2004 he held patents for about 150 things, far more than any other living inventor.
Number 10, the Slugbot. Kinda recent, but we'll go back to the ancient days. The 2021 Slugbot is a robotic device that was created by researchers at the California Institute of Technology, and this robot is designed not to help you with your homework, but instead help farmers manage crops without harmful pesticides. Pretty good, right? No more helicopters dropping random sprays on you, it's always fun. The Slugbot uses artificial intelligence, a little scary, but here we go, uses AI to detect and identify pests such as slugs, and it applies a targeted non-toxic solution to then, eliminate them. Little slug terminators going back in time to get rid of pests and problems. Love that. The device moves autonomously through the fields, navigating itself around plants and obstacles, and operates quietly to avoid disturbing wildlife. That's awesome. A quiet robotic slug is somewhere out there. Watch your step. Just, be light on the toes. Number 9, the BitBite. The BitBite is it's technology designed to improve eating habits and promote a healthier lifestyle. Again, I'm not sure I'm going to use this one. I like just eating chips without any voice in my head telling me to stop. That's how I like them. Dill pickle? See you later. It's a small wearable device that clips onto your earlobe and it monitors eating behaviors in real time. It tracks the number of bites, the speed of your eating, and the duration of meals, providing instant feedback and coaching you right there in your earlobe to encourage mindful eating habits. So while you're eating, it'll be like, slow down. You're like, well, good call. Thank you, Siri. That's good. BitBite also integrates with a mobile app, of course, right? You got to connect it all, which allows users to set personalized goals, track your progress, and receive personalized recommendations based on your eating patterns. You're like down today, he's like, I think it's burger day. I think it's definitely a burger day. With its advanced sensors and AI algorithms, BitBite has the potential to revolutionize the way that we approach nutrition and healthy eating without it being, boring and all charts and labels and stuff. Now it's just a voice, a literal voice in your ear telling you, don't eat that. No, you don't need sour keys today. Let it go. Number 8, Ornithopter. This one's good. This one's from Dune. It's the thing that goes really loud in IMAX. It's so good. The Ornithopter is very real and not as cool as in the movie Dune, but it was something. It was the type of aircraft that uses flapping wings to generate lift and propulsion, almost like a dragonfly. The concept of an ornithopter has been around since ancient times, but the first manned flight of a powered ornithopter was back in 1963. It's weird. I have a dragonfly tattoo that says 1963 on it. I'm like, yeah, I was there. I saw the whole thing. I was one of them. This historic flight was achieved by Dr. Paul McCready. He was an American engineer and inventor at the time. Now, his ornithopter, God, I wish I had one now. His ornithopter, called the Gossamer Condor, this one had a wingspan of 96 feet, and it was powered by pedaling a bicycle-like mechanism. You'd have to go quite fast if you wanted to get up there. Great for the legs, good leg day workout. The Gossamer Condor flew for a distance of 1,163 meters, reaching an altitude of 15 feet. That is amazing. The Wright bros are like, we can't beat that, but we'll try. We'll definitely try. Number 7, newspapers. We still have newspapers around. We still have some people hucking them on your doorstep, I guess, if that's still a thing. Haven't seen that in a bit. I feel like we're on the last leg with newspapers. You know what I mean? They had a decent run though, okay? To be fair, they've been around for a while. What do they got? 131 BC to wherever iPhones were invented? That's not a bad go. That's not bad at all. 131 BC to iPhones. That's not a bad run. That's pretty good. In ancient times, daily acts and events, they were often recorded and disseminated through newspapers known as acta diurna, or daily acts, also known as newspapers. These newspapers were introduced during the Roman Empire around 131 BC, and it contained news and accounts of daily events such as public speeches, trials, and ideally military victories. The newspapers were written in Latin and they were posted in public places for citizens to read. They were an important source of information for citizens in Rome, and in fact they were the only form of communication back then, so it was important. It was like an audition. As soon as the list goes up, as soon as that paper's posted, everyone rushes over to take a look. What happened? Who died? Who is it? The tradition of daily newspapers, of course, continued in various forms throughout history, eventually evolving into our modern day newspaper industry. Or now I just go, oh, what's on Twitter? This person died. Nice, that's sad. Number 6, electric light bulbs. This one here, yeah, it's a bit important, I guess. Without light bulbs, well, you wouldn't be able to see my pale Victorian era complexion right now. But now we got 1,000, so you can see every imperfection on my face. But thanks to Humphrey Davy, the world is a little brighter with electric light bulbs. Humphrey Davy was a British chemist, and he was famous, of course, for inventing the very first electric light in 1802. He created a battery-powered arc lamp, which consisted of 2 charcoal rods that were connected to a battery and then brought close together to produce this, well, light. This first ever electric arc that changed history. This arc produced a bright light that could be sustained for several hours, which today would suck, but back then, that's game-changing. Although Davy's electric light was not practical for widespread use yet due to its high cost and short lifespan, it was still a significant step towards lighting technology and where we are now in the future, and it paved the way for further research and development in this field. Again, pretty important. Davy's invention also had a profound impact on other areas, such as electrical power generation and distribution. So now we have clap-on, clap-off lights. That's crazy. If you could only see that was his dream. He wanted an electric arc and then he wanted to clap it off. He's like, yes, I've done it. Number 5, ancient Greek fire. Okay, this one's pretty epic. It's not, I mean, it's horrible. It's pretty rough history here, but definitely interesting nonetheless. Greek fire was used by the Eastern Roman Empire from the 7th to the 12th century. Now, the formula for Greek fire was a closely guarded secret, which is like so villainous, but it's believed to have contained petroleum, quicklime, and other combustible substances, all in one soup. Just a big hot mess. Something you don't want to drop, really, ideally. Greek fire was delivered using a flamethrower-like device on a boat called a siphon, and it was capable of igniting on water, making it a very reliable weapon against any ship out there. Yeah, they would shoot hot fire through a giant syringe at enemy ships. Ancient history is cool, it's impressive, but it's also, most of the time, brutal. It's disgusting. My God. Number 4, mechanical clocks. Look, we all love an hourglass. All right, I love an hourglass. Playing a board game with the family, you aggressively flip that thing down. No better feeling, right? Tick-tock, sands are swirling. But why don't we have an hourglass anymore? Why don't we use those? Those are pretty sweet. It's a pretty amazing invention. Let's talk about those for a bit. During the medieval period, the invention of mechanical clocks revolutionized timekeeping and replaced the use of hourglasses. One guy's like, what? I loved these though. That's me, I'm the guy. Mechanical clocks were first invented in Europe in the 13th 13th century, and they were initially used in public spaces, like churches, town squares, stuff like that. These early clocks relied on the energy generated by falling weights to power their movements. Yeah, you're not gonna have one of these next to your bed. Not for a while, at least. Mechanical clocks allowed for more precise timekeeping and helped standardize time across different regions, but back then it was scary. Back then it was weights and big things bonging around above your head. It's like, what time is it? I don't know. The only one we got. Number 3. The blast furnace. This one was also quite important. All these are pretty important, but this one's, wasn't used to destroy a human being, so it's good. The blast furnace. It's a medieval invention that revolutionized the production of iron, which is so key. We love that over here in Steamville with iron everywhere. I don't know, there's trains literally all around us. It was first introduced in Europe during the 14th century, and it quickly became a game changer. The furnace's design allowed for higher temperatures and more efficient use of fuel, leading to increased iron production and, most importantly, lower costs, which, blacksmiths love this, they hate this one trick. The blast furnace would also enable the production of higher quality iron that was suitable in wider ranges of applications, which again, we love that. We love when iron just stays in one spot. Usually it's how we like our iron. We made better, faster iron. I don't know, what a day. It sounds like a Daft Punk song. Harder, better, faster iron. This invention spread across Europe, of course, with many regions becoming iron production hot zones. A lot of blacksmiths in the area, a lot of beards. Single blacksmiths in your area. Just swipe, here we go. Number 2, the printing press. I'm not a fan of homework, but I get it. It's gotta be done sometime. The printing press, of course we have to include this. This was a revolutionary invention during, again, the medieval period that allowed for the mass production of books and pamphlets. I love pamphlets, thank God. Love me a good pamphlet. I love flipping things only thrice and then closing it. That's it. No more than 3. Invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century, the printing press could reproduce text more quickly, and again, it was pretty cheap considering what came before. You had to pay a guy to do everything. That's crazy. You gotta listen to him all day? No. You gotta feed him? No. This had quite the impact on society and enabled wider access to knowledge, the spread of ideas, and it contributed to the growth of literacy, which again, we love that. Still leading towards that one. The printing press played a key role in the Renaissance and the Protestant Reformation, and it may or may not have helped lay the foundation for the modern world. So I guess, we can put this close to number 1, I would say, or number 2 is pretty good. And finally, number 1, flutes. Yeah, we're ending on flutes. The best, right? We had to learn it for 3 years in school. Why? Couldn't tell you. No idea. We had to do it though. Music has been in the air for a very, very long time. Neanderthals enjoyed a flute every now and then. Who would have thunk? They weren't playing We Three Kings like us, but they were making music as early as 50,000 years ago, which is just baffling. The first instrument known to man was most likely our vocal cords, but the second instrument were the flutes of Geistenkloster Cave. They're the oldest musical instruments ever that have ever been discovered. Period. They were made from bird bone and the ivory of a mammoth. Yeah, if that's any indication how old they are, they made music out of mammoth ivory. Again, I still can't play the recorder. I never learned. I was useless. My fingers were too long. I'd always slip off the holes. I got Jack Skellington fingers. I can't play a recorder. No way. Number 10, extinction. Neanderthal history dates back to around 430,000 years ago. We've always thought that their extinction was caused by some sort of event, some catastrophic wipeout of some sorts, you name it, and we're trying to pinpoint it every day. Not every day, but you get it. There's a new Netflix documentary called Ancient Apocalypse where Graham Hancock explains this very event. What wiped out early humans, and rather, what's left of them? Very recently, a human tooth was discovered in a cave in southern France. Now, this tooth in question is from 54,000 years ago. Now, up until this point, we always thought Neanderthals went extinct around 40,000 years ago when modern humans started to roll in. But this new discovery could mean that the two species may have coexisted at the same time. Imagine that, you're going to work, you see a Neanderthal, you're like, hey, what's up? This is an odd 10,000 years, cool. Did modern humans wipe out Neanderthals? Maybe, probably. Are Homo sapiens to blame for the extinction of Neanderthals? That would be crazy, imagine that. Meanwhile, I'm over here like, hey, hit that thumbs up button, cheers. Species are wiping out each other, this is crazy. Number 9, craftsman. It doesn't matter how far back you go, art will always be around in some way, shape, or form. Literally, Neanderthal craftsmen would carry with them a pouch, and it would basically be a vandalism pouch. They could just go around and draw anything they wanted. And inside of it, it includes lithic flakes, sharp rock flakes, basically to cut anything at any time. You had with them scrapers as well, which would be used to cut animal meat or carve wood. Pressure tools were also in there as well to sharpen said other tools. Just the first ever tool belt, essentially. Now, Neanderthals would use hard rock knapping and use striking techniques, and sometimes they would carve art. Neanderthal carvings were discovered in Unicorn Cave over in Germany recently. Archaeologists found 50,000-year-old deer bone with patterns carved into it with said tools. So either these guys were bored or they were expressing themselves via art. Number 8. Food supply. Hunting looks challenging today, let alone thousands of years ago. I'm sure a crossbow helps, but back then, not so easy. Neanderthals would of course have to hunt in order to eat and survive, but just what did they eat? Hardin Tartar hinted at their diet, and that diet being mussels, dolphin, seal, and tons of plants. Now this came to light after part of a seal's jaw was discovered in a Vanguard cave in Gibraltar. Now the jaw in question had man-made cut marks from tools that I mentioned earlier. So now we have a full picture. Now we can put a date on it. Number 7. The Pit of Bones. The Pit of Bones. Classic, great name. Located in northern Spain. Yeah, first of all, what a horrible, scary name that is. Imagine pitching this to the wife for a family trip. Yeah, we're going to the Pit of Bones. Grab your sandals. It's gonna be great. Since 1976, well over 6,000 human fossils have been collected from the Pit of Bones. They found around 28 individual Neanderthals in total, so maybe the Pit of Bones is actually a great name after all. Kinda nails it, I guess. The skeletons date back to around 430,000 years ago. Now, in terms of facial features, these are for sure Neanderthals. We can confirm them. Neanderthal lineage confirmed. Very old. That's so old. I can't even imagine. Number 6. Spears and arrows. Perhaps one of the most vital inventions, and one that we for sure still use today, is that of arrows and spears. They were a necessity, of course, back then when it came to hunting, and for people in the Stone Age, well, all they needed was wood, really. They would carve a leaf shape or a triangle at the tip, our modern day arrow, and they were used mainly by raiders or barefoot hunters. But when it came to hunting, you didn't want to get too close to your prey, right? Or else the wrong team would be claiming victory and then eating the other for lunch. So their solution was to throw these spears, or make really tiny ones. One of two. You can either javelin somebody really hard or hang back and, just shoot a big dude with an arrow. One of the two. It's gonna be a lose-lose probably. The oldest bows in history are from 9000 BC. Can you believe that? And they're home guard bows. And they're found in Northern Europe all the way from the Mesolithic period. The oldest spears, however, they come from Germany around 400,000 years ago. They're actually the oldest wooden artifacts in history. Imagine being the first person to make a spear. Forget iPhones. A spear? Buddy, you're a genius.
Clear Craze was a nightmarish 90s product fad that brought up number 5, Crystal Pepsi. This soft drink was made by PepsiCo and initially released in Canada and the United States from 1992 to 1994. As a result of the 1980s to 90s clear craze, as I mentioned, this craze started because the idea of a clear product was a pure product. As we know, this is 100% not true, but Crystal Pepsi was one of the many clear and colorless products released by manufacturers such as Soapsoft, Miller Brewing Company, Palmolive, and more. In Crystal Pepsi's first year, it captured 1 full percentage point of US soft drink sales, or approximately 474 million, the equivalent to 889 million in 2021. By late 1993, the manufacturer discontinued the beverage. In 2013, a video of Kevin Strahl drinking a vintage 90s bottle of Crystal Pepsi went viral. This video alone sparked tens of thousands of petition signatures to bring the drink back. Even billboards were erected to demand for it. This interest from this campaign led to an official response to Strahl by PepsiCo on June 8th of 2015, commenting on the YouTuber and his fans' commitment and enthusiasm with the teaser of the drink's return. And so in mid-2016, Crystal Pepsi was released across the United States and Canada, promoted with a retro-style website and marketing video. The funny thing is, it tastes like normal Pepsi. You may not remember the item, but your ankles will. Number 4, the Skipit. Whew, my shins hurt just thinking about it. During its initial release in the 1980s, the Skipit toy became a commercial success through its advertisements on daytime TV such as Nickelodeon and Boomerang, as well as other children's programming. It was based off of the toy of the exact same concept, the Lemon Twist from the 1960s. A Skipit is a weighted plastic ball that ties around the ankle. A stretch of cord in between your ankle and the ball is skipped over as you swing the weighted ball around 360 in a circle. Oh yeah, those suckers could whip back at any second and give you a bruise that even a Razor scooter could be envious of giving. Sometimes they were super fancy, making noise, having cool designs, or flashing lights, things of that nature. For the cool kids of 4th grade. Time magazine included it in their 100 greatest toys ever, and it's actually still available for purchase today, but considerably less common and less popular. The equivalent of psychedelic for a preteen was Lisa Frank items. Number 3. Girls growing up in the 90s had access to what may be history's most vibrant and eclectic eras of fashion and baubles. Baby Fat, the Delia's catalog, Wet Seal low-rise jeans, and of course, Lisa Frank. Their endless products included everything from stickers and 3-ring binders to jewelry and clothing, all featured the iconic brand signature aesthetic of cute cuddly animals in bright colors and patterns amidst black color blocking. Lisa Frank herself was only 24 when she incorporated her name into a franchise, and it's in the same year that she received its first $1 million order from Spencer's Gifts, aka she was a smash success from day one. Lisa Frank's popularity took a dip with the rise of digital era. The company receded into smaller collaborations and was mostly underground, but strongly resurged in the 2010s. Since there's been brand collabs with Crocs, Urban Outfitters, BlendJet, Morph Makeup, and even Pillsbury Sugar Cookies. If you've managed to hold on to some of your Lisa Frank items from childhood, you'd be surprised to know that some of them have gone up in value and are worth a pretty penny now. Number 2 is a trip to Orbits and the bathroom, because this can't have been good for your stomach. This is for my Canadians. The 90s was a creative era for many things, especially beverages. Companies explored unforeseen parameters of flavor and aesthetics, and so we see the Orbits soda not soda beverage thing. It was a Canadian beverage and it was short-lived, both coming out and being discontinued in the same year of 1997. It's a clear drink, clear craze things, that's chock full of sugar and had bright colored gelatin balls suspended and floating mysteriously. It was fruit flavored, but I'll be honest, these are the last flavors I expected to read when I was researching this product. Blackcurrant berry, blueberry, melon, strawberry, pineapple, banana, cherry, coconut, raspberry, citrus, and vanilla orange. That is intense. No wonder these drinks were short-lived because of their overwhelming flavor combinations and weird floating orbs. Lava lamps are fun to look at, but no one wants to drink one. But if you do, hit eBay. You can still find unsealed Orbits drinks there, running you an average of $50 a bottle. And number 1 is the Windows Start Maze screensaver. Ah yes, the back rooms. Maybe this screensaver is why so many of us find a fascination with that concept. Anyways, if you had a desktop computer in or around the time of 1995 and 6, you're likely familiar with this endless maze screensaver. While the graphics may be painful to look at now, they were top-notch visual at the time, like a 4D roller coaster. The default setting for the maze is a textured with brick walls and a wood floor and its asbestos tile ceiling. Users can customize these textures, swapping them out for animated psychedelic patterns in later versions, or maybe create their own custom textures. The walls are lined with art, some random plants, and statues. The maze is randomly generated each time, with the player navigating it in first person, spawning in front of a floating start button. After starting, it automatically traverses using the right hand rule, which will guarantee the maze will eventually be solved because all randomly generated mazes are simply connected. This bizarre maze was perfect to zone out to for hours, or be the basis of creepypastas and spooky stories. I'm sure many 90s kids watching have their own memories of this creepy yet neat screensaver. Let's start off with the Friction Strike match. Before big lighters, before matchsticks themselves, way back in the hootenanny days, fire was commonly made by a flint or a fire drill, and both could take time or effort. And according to Charles Darwin, fire was the most significant human achievement after language. Darwin was a big fan of something called the Prometheus match, which was invented in 1829. It was a little glass vial filled with sulfuric acid and wrapped in paper. When crushed, it ignited. It was essentially a firecracker. Darwin's favorite party trick happened to be crushing these firecracker matches in between his front teeth to ignite them. As one might imagine, a match that people are tempted to light with their mouths has some safety drawbacks, especially when it's prone to literally explode and not elegantly smolder. Man's supposed to be a genius, and he's trying to blow his face off to impress women. Thankfully, British pharmacist John Walker has a brain and was experimenting with chemicals when he accidentally scraped the coated stick across his hearth, igniting it. Well, a little fire ignited above his head. They didn't have light bulbs yet. And in 1827, he began selling the Consgreaves at his pharmacy, a cardboard stick coated in a mixture of potassium chlorate and some other stuff which would ignite when struck against a piece of sandpaper. Though Walker's invention was instantly popular, he didn't patent it, and as a result, others copied the design and sold their own versions, obscuring his role as the inventor until long after his death in 1859. And a shocking amount of medical discoveries were actually
accidental. The first we'll talk about is the Warfarin brand blood thinners. Viagra was intended for high blood pressure, and Validundundun, a word I can't say, was a failed attempt at creating fabric dye. But Warfarin, a common blood thinner, was discovered not in a lab, but in a field where livestock were dying from mysterious disease. To set the scene, it's the 1920s in the rolling hills and dewy fields. Yet a bunch of cows and sheep suffered internal bleeding, and many previously healthy ones had also bled to death after simple veterinary procedures. A Canadian veterinarian, Frank Schofield, determined that the pretty scenic dew on those rolling pastures had rotted out the sweet clovers and hay the animals had eaten. This moldy clover contained an anticoagulant that was preventing their blood from clotting. In 1940, scientists at the University of Wisconsin had isolated the anticoagulant compound in the moldy hay. A particularly powerful derivative of the compound was patented as Warfarin, named after the Wisconsin Alumni Research Foundation that funded its development. But before it was heroically used to treat heart attacks, strokes, and blood clots, Warfarin was used as rat killer. In 1948, it was approved for the use of rodenticide. It wasn't until the mid-1950s that Warfarin entered clinical use for humans. Among its early patients was President Dwight D. Eisenhower, whose 1955 heart attack was treated with this drug. They'll always keep you posted. It's post-it notes, and I have to physically fight myself to not call them sticky notes. So, scientist Dr. Spencer Silver is aiming to create a hardcore adhesive in 1968. Accidentally, he does the complete opposite and creates the world's crappiest glue. It sticks to nothing. But what he discovered in his cheap glue was microspheres, which retain their stickiness with a removability characteristic, allowing attached surfaces to peel apart easily. Once. Nobody pretend you can move a sticky note. You get one stick, and after that, all the corners are peeling up anywhere you put it. Anyways, Silver relentlessly shared his invention with his colleagues, but he couldn't get any traction to make it a further product. Until Arthur Fry, fed up with the little papers falling out of his hymnal at the church, which by the way is one of the most dad complaints I could ever imagine, he was determined to take Silver's invention and make it the solution. They worked on developing a sticky bookmark and, after noting on them, realized the product could be a new way to communicate. Also, its now iconic canary yellow was chosen by happenstance as the lab next door only had scrap yellow paper on hand for them to use. Marketers decided to put the product directly into the consumer's hands. The massive testing effort known as the Boise Blitz, because of its launch in Boise, Idaho, was a runaway success. 90% of those who tried the product say they'd buy it, and Silver said that, like many groundbreaking innovations, theirs was a product nobody thought they needed until they did. Bang, bang, boom, lots of regret for you. It's dynamite. Fun rhyme comes from a sad reason. We'll get to that, because while most inventors were overjoyed by their accidental discoveries, woohoo, free money, minimal work, not all of them were. The unlikely path that led to dynamite horrified one of its creators, who never intended for its explosive ingredient to be used at all. Nitroglycerin, which is my cat's family name, hi buddy, was invented by Italian chemist in 1847. Ascanio Sobrero combined glycerol with nitric and sulfuric acids and produced an extremely dangerous compound. Powerful than gunpowder, it was more volatile with a wider range and higher blasting force. Sobrero, nervous of his discovery, was opposed to its use immediately and wanted it to go no further. But his lab mate, Alfred Noble, saw potential for creating an insanely profitable tool of aggression. So, stealing his partner's work in 1867, Noble created dynamite, which he stabilized the nitroglycerin through the addition of silica powder, though he blew up a few of his factories and labs in the process. Sobrero's discovery led to Noble's creation, something he never intended and deeply regretted, saying, "When I think of all the victims killed during nitroglycerin explosions and the terrible havoc that has been wreaked, which in all probability will continue to occur in the future, I'm almost ashamed to admit to be its discoverer." Meanwhile, Alfred Noble is a millionaire with a Nobel Prize and no conscience. Can you believe that before the 1930s, nobody ever smelled chocolate chip cookies baking? That's right, they smell like home, warmth, sweetness, and most importantly, chocolate. See, way back in the day, a cute little old couple, Kenneth and Ruth Graves Wakefield, owned and operated the Toll House Inn, a tourist lodge located between Plymouth and Boston, Massachusetts. Cooking all of the food for the guests, Ruth went to bake buttered drop dough cookies, which is a type of all chocolate cookie. But she found that she was out of baker's chocolate. To improvise, she chopped up a Nestle semi-sweet chocolate bar given to her by Andrew Nestle on his recent visit to the inn, thinking that the chocolate would melt and spread into the batter. The chocolate didn't melt into the batter, however. The chunks just softened in their spots, and although it wasn't what she was planning, Ruth served the cookies and they quickly became a hit. Soon her recipe was published in a Boston newspaper and then spread to other papers in New England area, making her inn and her a hit. She reached an agreement with Nestle, whose semi-sweet chocolate bar sales were rapidly growing because of her. The company was allowed to print the Toll House cookie recipe on their packages while supplying Ruth with all the chocolate she needed for the rest of her life. The rest is chocolatey chippy history. Thanks, Mama Ruth.
Number 5. Automatic smoking machines. When I read about this, I actually laughed my ass off for like a minute straight. I get some of these inventions, or where these inventions were trying to go. Like an indoor saddle, sure, that's fun, I guess, if you want it to be. The mask at the time was thought to have beauty benefits. The automatic smoking machine was all bad. I don't see any good thing about this thing. It's not even designed well. It looks like shit in the corner. It was just a machine that smoked all of your cigarettes. Yeah, it smoked them automatically and then blew the smoke all over your curtains. What a great invention. Nice, 10 out of 10. Gonna review that. What a perfect addition to the family. This thing, first of all, was not small. It was not petite. It looked like a saw trap placed in the corner. It was so Victorian and scary looking. There's gears and pulleys and there's smoke pluming out of random places. It's like having a choo-choo train in your house. Who wants this? A choo-choo train that gave you lung cancer. Nice, score. Merry Christmas. Yeah, fire it up. It only takes 80 cigarettes at a time. I know. Number 4, the surprise chair. Are you tired of sitting down on chairs that, stay still and don't immediately topple back once you apply any amount of pressure? Well, don't I have just the thing for you? Here we go. The surprise Victorian chair. I guess it was invented for laughs in a world before Netflix. Sure, I guess you have to be creative. There's no sign of practicality in this patent, so we're gonna go ahead and assume that these 1800s folks, they were hilarious. They loved a practical gag. I'm not even gonna say prank. Don't even make me say prank, YouTube. Not saying the P word. The patent shows the exact science here and what it takes to surprise your guest and then have them topple to the ground. I go, ah ha ha, then you bring them back up and then give them the real chair. This is a prank gift, and if we've learned anything in time, getting prank gifts, it only works once. So once you get your pal to take a topple in the 1800s, you would then have to store this heavy, antique, horrible looking heavy chair somewhere in your home and then bring the real chair back. Again, it sounds like way too much effort for a very low payoff. Imagine that, 400-pound chair. They're like, gotcha. All right. Who next? Number 3, toilet troubles. Now, the Victorian era, it was unsanitary to say the least, sure, but it was also dangerous in ways that you wouldn't expect. Some random poo-poo signs coming out of you. One of the greatest Victorian inventions was the bathroom. I love this one, it's great. Now, it took a few tries to figure out the whole methane gas problem, but we did it. Yeah, spontaneous combustion of the bathroom was weirdly common in the V era. Flammable gases like methane and hydrogen sulfide, well, they built up over time with human waste, and more human waste, and just, so much and gases, it built up in the sewers and eventually it backed up into our homes. Next thing you know, you're lighting a candle and then your bathroom's gone and you're gone and there's everywhere and it's the Victorian era and you're like, what do I even do right now? What just happened? What science was that? Number 2, the wave rockin' bath. Seaside at home, let's do it. Are you tired of regular bathtubs that are stationary, relaxing, and don't soak your entire floor in minutes? Well, the Niagara wave rockin' bath washes all that away. Yep, see you later. This bathtub was designed to rock, literally. It kept your blood in active circulation, apparently, and it only required 3 pails of water, also bull. The patent promised the fullest illusion of a sea or a river bath, whilst promising absolutely no water will splash on the floor. Yeah, good joke. No way that's gonna happen. And it didn't happen because that's way too good to work out. Imagine having this now growing up. Are you kidding me? My mom would be yelling at me to clean up the floor immediately. I already made enough splashes with just a stationary bathtub. I don't want a rocking bathtub. I'm trying to rinse my hair. I'm like, this sucks. Shit everywhere. It's so stupid. Just doing this is so stupid. Looking at lights. Finally, number 1, beauty patches. Oh, we need to bring back beauty patches ASAP. Imagine me right now doing this list with an 800s beauty patch. You'd hit that thumbs up immediately. You'd be like, this Victorian man is straight out of time. These patches came in all shapes and sizes. Now, even in this portrait from 1755, quite a ways ago, Joshua Reynolds painted Charles, the 9th Lord Cathcart, rocking a large beauty patch. These beauty patches go way back. Also, look at him. That's a lord right there with that. He's confident. Got one of those, he's great. Beauty patches in the 1800s, they were small, tiny circles, sometimes even hearts or stars, that's pretty fun, you go. Now the reason for these patches, and sometimes having more than one, is because they were commonly used to cover up smallpox scars. Yeah, we found out your secret, you Victorian era gentlemen. They were made out of silk velvet and they were applied with glue, so if you pick a spot, you better be confident. The patches were dark black and they were also meant to make your pale skin pop, which again, imagine if I had one right now, you'd be blind. I'm so pale as is already. If I put one of those patches on, wouldn't be able to see the screen. You turn that brightness down real quick. The position of these patches could also determine your political allegiance. Historian Joseph Addison took note of these positions when observing two political parties from back in the 1800s. One party had beauty patches on the right side of their face, while the other side had the opposite. Today we have Twitter. Yeah, usually you can tell someone's political allegiance by just taking a glimpse of that. You're like, oh dear, no, we don't want to talk to that guy. He's a right patch kind of guy. Number 10, ancient telescope. The Nimrod lens. It's a 3,000-year-old rock crystal lens discovered in modern day Iraq in the mid 1800s. Now, it was discovered quite recently, but back then, this thing was like ancient technology. Today we have the James Webb Space Telescope. 3,000 years ago, they were more advanced than we think. The lens is believed to have been made by a Syrian craftsman sometime around 750 BC. It's the oldest known example right now of a magnifying lens, which is sounds kind of nerdy, but that's cool. That's kind of one of those facts that makes me go, oh, interesting, I like that. Up until then, everybody was just squinting a lot, really. We didn't have anything to zoom in on. The lens is quite small in size. It's no James Webb, that's for sure. It's around 3 centimeters in diameter and a focal length of 12 centimeters. So again, not James Webb, but it was something, right? It was anything. The exact purpose of the Nimrod lens is still up for debate. That's still unknown, but it's thought to have been used for decorative or ceremonial purposes, or possibly, hopefully, magnifying things to study small objects, because that's science right there, it's technology. The Nimrod lens is the first example of ancient optical technology. That's cool, imagine building that, it's crazy. Number 9, the iron pillar. Remember when monoliths started to appear all around the world? We were all talking about it for like a month and then we just stopped. What happened with that? That's concerning. This next one rings a similar bell. The Iron Pillar of Delhi. It's a 7.3 meter tall iron column and it's located in the Qutb complex in Delhi, India. Now it went up sometime during the Gupta period, so sometime around the 3rd and 4th century AD, and it's been standing for over 1600 years without rusting or corroding at all, which is impressive. That and like the Egyptian pyramids, we have no idea how this happened. The column is notable for its high quality iron compositions and advanced forging techniques used to create it. We still can't figure out just how that was done, considering how long ago it was made. The Iron Pillar is also covered in several inscriptions in the Sanskrit language, which is pretty exciting, providing valuable ancient history about the Gupta Empire, and also, again, in remarkable condition, which is super rare. The pillar attracts visitors from all over the world. Want to go see a pillar? I kind of want to go see a pillar now. That'd be a crazy trip. Number 8, the Anticatherine Mechanism. Computers today, we can fit them in our pockets, but ancient Greek analog computers, apparently you can also fit those in your pockets. Who knew? The Anticatherine Mechanism was used to predict astronomical positions and eclipses for calendrical and astrological purposes. That sounds scientific, wow. It was discovered in 1901 in the Antikythera shipwreck, hence its name, and it's estimated to have been built around 150 and 100 BC. Now the mechanism consists of at least 30 bronze gears, and it was operated by turning a crank. This is, again, like ancient technology. This is amazing. It's rusty and full of barnacles now, but back then in its prime, this mechanism would accurately display the positions of the sun, the moon, and planets on specific dates, as well as predict solar and lunar eclipses. Some guy in the back's like, spoilers, it's tomorrow. Told you. The mechanism is considered a remarkable technological achievement for its time and provides valuable insights into the history of ancient Greek astronomy and technology, all in one rusty box right there. Think of what we haven't found yet, you know what I mean? I'm nervous. I'm so nervous. Humans are quite advanced. Number 7, ancient seismoscope. Zhanghang seismoscope is an ancient Chinese instrument that was used to detect and measure earthquakes, and it looked pretty badass. I'm not gonna lie, this thing looks pretty cool. It was invented by renowned scientist, mathematician, and astronomer Zhanghang. It was made during the Han Dynasty around 132 CE. The seismoscope consisted of a bronze vessel that rested on the back of a bronze dragon, with 8 open-mouthed toads positioned beneath it. Yeah, it's scientific, but it's also a beautiful instrument, right? Like I said, it's badass. So when an earthquake would happen, a mechanism inside the vessel would trigger the release of the ball from one of the toad's mouths, indicating the direction of the earthquake. He'd be like, "Wah," that way. And everyone would be like, okay, cool. Let's go this way then. Today it's a little different. Today it's fun. It's just graphs and charts. Looks like some avatar technology, whatever. No toads puking up any balls in any direction, so ergo boring. Number 6, the Baghdad Battery, also known as the Parthian Battery. This is an ancient device that would go back to 248 BC. Why am I doing this? Am I Italian? Am I Steve Jobs? I'm walking around like, yes, I invented this. Look at my loose wrist here. Why do I gotta keep these down? Keep these at bay here. The battery consists of a clay jar, a copper cylinder, and an iron rod, all of which were found together in what is now modern day Iraq. It's believed that the device was used to generate an electric current by filling the jar with an acidic liquid like vinegar or wine. I sound like Bill Nye the Science Guy right now, but then they would insert copper and iron components after, and then they would make electricity. They would make, I don't know, here, Tony Stark would make this. I don't know, it's crazy. The purpose of the Baghdad Battery is still unknown, which is fascinating. I won't be able to sleep at night now, but it's thought to have been used for electroplating or medicine or as a religious artifact. And today we're like, well, we have no idea. This is the stuff that I love. Old, ancient, like this sounds like something from Breath of the Wild that I would find.
Another kid-aimed item was Freezy Freakies, which sounds way more inappropriate than it actually is. These are actually the item on the list that if it were to come out again, exactly as it had been in the 80s, it would still sell nowadays. Kids who grew up in the Northeast were pretty invested in this fad that might have gone unnoticed in warmer areas. It's a thick winter glove that when the temperature dipped below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, an image would suddenly appear on the material on the top of your hand. 30+ designs were released, the most popular being a robot, a unicorn, rocket ships, ballerinas, rainbows, snowflakes, and various sports themes. Though the I love snow with a heart were the most popular amongst all ages. The secret to the $13 Freakies was thermochromic ink, a temperature-sensitive dye that's being used in mood rings and heat-sensitive food labels and can appear translucent until it's exposed to warmer temperatures. At the height of Freezy Mania, the manufacturer was moving 300,000 pairs of gloves per year, and while Freezy Freakies lasted well over a decade, by the 1990s things had cooled. Color-changing ink for coffee mugs or beer cans was more common, wearing down the novelty, and knockoffs had also grabbed licensed cartoon characters, which the Freezies were never interested in pursuing. Regardless, they're still available for purchase today. Taking it from the back 40s to the small screen, it's a duck hunt. Quite literally. Like said, there was a lot of video games coming out in the 80s, but Duck Hunt was unique. This game is what popularized light gun video games. Games where you can use real prop to interact with the screen. At the time of its release in '84, Duck Hunt was pretty much the first of its kind. The game was released for and by Nintendo, first as an arcade game, but then a launch game for the NES system in North America in '85. You would use the CRT television for my youngins, that's the big curved one that takes up like 4 cubic feet and has a green haze over the screen your parents could use to suss out if you're lying about watching TV before they came in the room, and the NES Zapper to shoot ducks appearing on said screen. They'd appear 1 or 2 at a time and you'd only have 3 missed shots before you're out. You hit the right amount of ducks, you're on to the next level. I played this not too long ago on an old CRT myself, and nothing says entertainment like being 2 feet from a screen and getting made fun of by your best friend for getting game rage at an '84 video game. Beginning with the nationwide rollout of NES in 1986, Duck Hunt was one of several titles Nintendo included in a pack-in game with some of its releases. It remains the most sold-out shooting game in the world. One fun tidbit I'll leave you with is the legacy of the Duck Hunt dog. It's only known by this name and would accompany players in certain game modes, notorious for laughing at you whenever you miss. The dog went on to cameo in another NES game, Bill Barker's Trick Shooting, but he also cameos in 2006 Wii Play and in 2011 Wii Play Motion. In 2014 Super Smash Bros., the dog and one of the ducks appear collectively as playable characters, and the Duck Hunt team and stage reappear in the 2019 Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. In 2015 film Pixels, it's the dog's best appearance, a cameo where it's given a trophy by the aliens and adopted by an old woman. The most memorable name on the list has to be Blockbuster. I can smell old carpets riddled with soda and mildew now. Nothing says luxury like wandering here on a Friday night to rent a copy of the newly released River's Edge and crush on a young Keanu Reeves with your bestie. In 1985, the first Blockbuster opened in Dallas, Texas. Yeehaw! At the time, most video rental stores were private ownership and offered a limited selection of titles. Seeing as Blockbuster had some 8,000 tapes displayed and readily available and a computerized checkout process, well, the first store was an unsurprising success and they expanded rapidly. They eventually became the largest providers of in-home movie entertainment and expanded to video and board game rentals as well. By 1985, Blockbuster was America's leading video chain with some 400 stores. By the early 1990s, Blockbuster launched its 1,000th store and expanded into the overseas market. While in the 80s they reigned, the 90s they fall. In the mid-1990s, the DVD made its debut, and with it came Netflix, the online DVD rental company, and Amazon video stores. Pay-per-view was an additional stab to Blockbuster's gut. The additional competition of being able to watch instantly without leaving home was just way too much. In 2004, Blockbuster tried to keep up with the online DVD rental service, but it just couldn't compete with Netflix's. On September 23rd of 2010, the company filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. By 2014, the last of the company-owned stores had closed, and that, kids, is how streaming killed the video star. No more monkeys jumping on the bed, especially when mom installs the waterbed. Oh yeah, these little baddies dominated the sleeping world for quite a while. And sure, they weren't invented in the 80s, rather the late 60s, but these beds were all the wave in the 80s. Get it? Seriously though, the 80s were the height of waterbed fame. It was as if they hadn't existed prior. After experimenting with chairs filled with cornstarch and even jello, Charlie Hall, a design student at San Francisco State University, hit upon the idea of a mattress full of water. Their advent suited the swinging 60s lustrous mindset. One company claimed that 2 things are better on a waterbed, and one of them is sleep. And Charlie Hall did sell waterbeds to Hugh Hefner to cover in Tasmanian possum hair after all. By 1971, Time magazine reported that in Manhattan, the waterbed display at Bloomingdale's department store for a while was the popular singles meeting place. But we're talking 80s, when the waterbed had successfully made the leap from lonely, luxurious bachelors to the suburban bedroom. At the peak of the waterbed craze in 1987, more than 1 out of 5 mattresses purchased in the US were waterbeds, meaning that they were more mainstream than a regular mattress. So why did mainstream vanish the way it did? Couple reasons. That sexual association, great marketing during the 1970s and early 1980s, became albatrossed by the 1990s. It also had technological shortcomings. They had very heavy wooden frames, required a hose to fill and empty. Moving them was disastrous, and I mean algae or leaks are a concern. Even nowadays, mattress retailers have expressed a client can lay on a mattress and love it, but learning it's a waterbed makes it an immediate no never mind. Mainly the reason's simple. Waterbeds emerged during a time where the culture embraced anything different, especially a product that embodied sexual liberation or creative freedom. We aren't the same anymore. Before Pokemon, Garbage Pail Kids were what got you sent home from school for not paying attention. Man, did parents and teachers hate them, but that is part of what made kids love them more. Everything about these cards was about irony and puns, from the name to the art to the literal mocking origins. Garbage Pail Kids came out in 1985 as trading cards depicting a character having some comical abnormality, deformity, or terrible injury or disease, all with a humorous wordplay character name such as Atom Bomb or Blasted Billy. Many of the cards' backs feature puzzle pieces that form a giant mural, while others vary depending on various series, from humorous licenses and awards to comic strips. The cards were actually made to parody the Cabbage Patch Kids doll franchise that was booming at the time as a boys' product alternative. And it worked! Garbage Pail Kids quickly became the coolest thing around, with over 800 million cards making in the hands of children everywhere. The cards even inspired a live-action movie and an animated TV show, both made in 1987. The movie was so bad it grossed out critics and earned several Razzie Awards, which is a satirical awards show for cinematic failures. Cabbage Patch Kids got the last laugh, however. After suing, the producers of Garbage Pail Kids settled outside of court to remove the resemblance between the characters and to change the logo design. Production of the cards themselves continued, but by 1988 the sales had dwindled and a planned Series 16 was just never produced. These cards were banned, traded, and now collected. Some of these vintages are worth fortunes nowadays. And to start us at number 10 is the car phone. Our first dabbling with mobile phones ironically came in the form of our vehicles. These funky and clunky phones could be carried in briefcases that were to be stored and charged in the car, or were straight up just built into it. This could be in the center or backseat console, the dashboard, the driver's side door, endless possibilities. The car phone was at its best and most high-tech during the 90s and was definitely part of the very important technology for very important people fad and mindset. If you weren't born to see them in person, perhaps you've seen them in 90s film and TV hits, shows like Seinfeld and Friends, and iconic scenes like in Die Hard when Bruce Willis is saving the day and they flip to a shot of Argyle oblivious of the chaos above whilst talking to his sweet honey on the car phone. I hope you have fast reflexes because Bop It is number 9. Originally invented in 1996, this handheld toy quickly became worldwide success and a popular toy, models of it winning numerous awards for electronic toys and games. To jog your memory or teach some new folks, the original game of Bop It has 3 main features. Bop It was a button on the side, Twist It was a twisting handle on the lower left side, and Pull It was a pullable handle near the top. The device would call out one of the 3 instructions, increasing the speed as the game progressed. Whenever the player fumbled or missed the call, the game was over. Players' scores are announced at the end of the gameplay with a cipher in which different tones represent different point values, and the maximum possible score is 100. The 3 were spread enough to require quick reflex and have 3 game modes: solo play, multiplayer play, and beat bopping, which followed a musical tone. This game was the first of what was later to become a series of Bop It games relying on the same set of basic patents. For number 8, it's the Palm Pilot. Let's take a second and remember this pre-cellphone cell phone, the grandmother of handheld digital devices. PDAs, personal digital assistants for my young people, were truly beloved of the 90s, but none more so than the Palm Pilot, which took everyone by storm. A businessman glued to his Palm Pilot was an ongoing cliche in 90s movies. They could check emails, work on documents, they had little games on them as well. They came with a writing stylus that would only work on the screen of that device. Convenient until you lost yours and had to go out and buy a new one. Yes, they truly had all the features of a futuristic parking meter with its unlit display and few hundred kilobytes. This device is laughable if you have an 8GB phone because you have the memory storage of 16,000 Palm Pilots. The toy that could get us all out of absences at school, Talkboy, is number 7, the perfect symbol of 90s tech. Clunky, obsolete, tied to a beloved 90s franchise and featuring a payoff that, for the time, was an amazing novelty. It was seriously just a video cassette in a little player upon which you could record and play back your own voice or somebody else's. No part of that setup is still relevant whatsoever. The audio recorder only had 2 features, speeding and slowing down recorded vocals. But that was good enough to pull off a few unbelievable pranks, pretend to be your parents on the phone, or mess with some bullies, as was shown to us all by Kevin McAllister in Home Alone 2. The second this chunky device was used in the hit franchise, it had kids everywhere clamoring to have one. And lest we forget, the Talkboy also had a cooler, sleeker cousin, the Yak Bag, which could only record a few seconds of sound and play it forward or backwards like an auditory Vine or TikTok of 90s audio toys. Number 6, annoying but efficient, beepers. Also called pagers, these devices were fantastic for reaching someone right away. How they worked was a call or email is forwarded to the pager, a message comes in with a number to call. Although hardly used anymore, pagers remain one of the most reliable forms of communication available and are still widely used by doctors as there's no delay in delivery, no network overload, and no dead zones. They had to be reachable at all times, but only in an archaic, indirect way. Someone pages you and then you have to go find a telephone and call them back. You also definitely kept a list of all the codes you needed to understand in the messages you received in your back pocket. That's why when you've watched medical dramas, there's always that scene of a doctor being paged, checking the mini radio frequency device, and then suddenly running away. If someone had a pager, they were usually important or needed it for work, but most people had them by the late 90s. People used to say beep me and it was a really cool thing. Meanwhile, today's grade schoolers are walking around with fully functioning iPhones like they're expecting a call from Rihanna at any second.
Number 5, Neanderthal spears and arrows. Okay, we'll get into the more important stuff, the things that stuck around. Sure. Perhaps one of the most vital inventions of all time, one we for sure still use today. Arrows and or spears. They were a necessity when it came to hunting back then. For people in the Stone Age, all they needed was wood, really. Then they'll just do the rest. So impressive. So what they would do is they would carve a leaf shape or a triangle at the tip of this wood, and they were used mainly by riders or barefoot hunters. But when it came to hunting, well, you didn't want to get too close to your prey or else, the wrong team would be claiming victory and eating the other for lunch. So their solution here was to throw these spears or make really tiny ones. Yeah, you can either javelin something really hard or hang back a bit and shoot some arrows into some animals' knees. The latter is a bit more safe. The oldest bows in history are from 9000 BC. They're the home guard bows and they're found in Northern Europe all the way from the Mesolithic period. The oldest spears, however, they come from Germany about 400,000 years ago. They're actually the oldest wooden artifacts in history. Ever. Yeah, imagine being the first person to make a spear. Forget iPhones or iPods. A spear? Humanity. Look at this. I made it. Number 4. Penicillin. Also a pretty good invention, I'll admit. This one's pretty great. Sometimes miracles happen when nobody is looking. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin back in 1928, but at the time he was actually studying Staphylococcus bacteria that causes infections and boils. But right before Alexander left for a 2-week vacation, he left a petri dish with some of that Staphylococcus on the table, rather than stored away in an incubator like he should have. Now, during this time off, a Penicillium mold spore just drifted in there through a window or the lab stairwell. Some Horton Here's a Who type commute, whatever, got in the room somehow, some way, and the temperature of the room and the lack of one Alexander Fleming allowed for the mold to settle, fight back, and prevent that bacteria from growing furthermore. He discovered when he got back this antibacterial substance was only produced by strains of penicillium. And now we're a little safer because of it, I'd say. Yeah, he did some good stuff. Number 3, earthquake machine. Nikola Tesla. The man, he knew a thing or two about electricity, and legend has it, he made a steam-powered machine that could cause small earthquakes. Yeah, you thought I was gonna say a machine where it could sense them. No, he made one that could caused them. A little bit of a villain move, I'd say. Science. Also, I guess that's science too. Tesla's electromechanical oscillator, or earthquake machine as I call it. It's a little more cool. Legend has it he actually did cause a real earthquake back in 1898 in New York. That's an Avengers level threat right there. Can anyone stop this man? It's Nikola Tesla. Do we stop him? Do we let him go? I don't even know at this point. Tesla told this at his 79th birthday party, according to his biographer. And there's no science that supports these claims, but they're quite fun to share. Apparently, he had a machine that made you, you know, out of your, in your pants. There was a machine that made you, and then you, and then you had to clean up some stuff. The vibrations on this machine was basically a massive taser, and it caused your muscles to clench up. So in other words, you had to change your pants if you use this one. He's a villain. This guy's a villain now that I'm saying this out loud. Number 2, Neanderthal flutes. Yes, music. Where did music come from, right? Music's been in the air for quite a long time, and Neanderthals enjoyed a flute every now and then, it seems. They weren't playing We Three Kings, but they were making music, or some sort of sounds, as early as 50,000 years ago. The first instrument known to man was most likely our vocal cords, but the second one were the flutes of Gist-and-Clouster Cave. They're the oldest musical instruments that have ever been discovered. They were made from bird bone and the ivory of a mammoth, so if that's any indication of how old they are, they made music out of mammoth ivory. Mammoth, the thing that's extinct, and I still can't even sing. Look at that. And finally, number 1, Neanderthal glass. Perhaps the most impressive. This has been on my mind for a while. Imagine making glass for the first time. You would have thought that you were a wizard. I watch glass blowing shows now, and I think that they're wizards. It looks like wizardry. It's crazy. The guy that blows the air into it, they gotta have the spotlight on him more. He's doing some crazy work back there. Glass that was naturally occurring, like obsidian for example, that was around and used during the Stone Age. But man-made glass was first used around 6,000 years ago. Archaeologists are pinning Lebanon, North Syria, ancient Egypt, all as the birthplace of synthetic glass. Now the first use of man-made glass were beads. How hilarious is that? Imagine being the first person to rock beads. Oh, the confidence. I'd put them right in front of my door and be like, don't come in. Okay, maybe. No. Mid-2000 BC, guy glazes up some beads like a wizard. What an icon. And now we have bead doors and bead necklaces. Now we have guys wearing shell necklaces too. A little different, but you know, worth a mention. They're a little odd, those ones. Those are the top 10 world-changing inventions that you were never taught. Hopefully, I gave you a little something here today. If you like this video, comment down below. I'll bring you a part 3, no problem. Some Neanderthal flutes, bring some more of those in for sure.
Number 10, the hula chair. Here's another gem from the depths of the infomercial vault of nonsense, and seriously, there's a lot. Look, as a Canadian, we still love consumerism. Sure, but not as much as the United States, but there's still a lot of mom and dads sitting on the couch every Saturday with the fat credit card, just waiting for the next life-changing product to come across the screen. So that means we get to see those awful infomercials too. You're not alone, Americans. That includes the hula chair, the latest mechanized weight loss product that promises to keep you in shape with minimal effort. I should be the spokesman. Well, sign me and the rest of America up, baby, because the hula chair is a motorized chair that swivels to keep you moving while sitting. Something like this, a little hula movement for you, something like that, wow. Demonstrations of the chair show multiple speeds, the fastest looking more like a violent throwing than weight loss, and well, no surprise it doesn't work, and they're just not really around anymore. For good reason. Number 9, the potty putter. This one's ridiculous. Golf. The sport for wealthy businessmen across the world and for every schmuck who wishes they could get into the clubhouse. That's me. I like the clubhouse. It's cool. I don't mind a round of golf, but I'm more excited for the ice cold beers during the day. It's why I prefer mini golf. What can I say? I like the simple things in life. So maybe I should get a potty putter. A miniature golf set for the bathroom. Just what everyone needs. Me to spend more time in the bathroom, hog out the toilet. Sorry, boys and girls. Complete with green, putter, 2 golf balls, and a little hole with a flag. Now you can practice your putt and grout the tile at the same time. I'm not sure where to begin with this, but if there's anything to be said, it's that toilet time is toilet time. I don't think I have to tell you guys how unsanitary sharing a golf club in the bathroom is. Ooh, stinky. But hey, at least it comes with a do not disturb sign so people know you're getting your practice in. Ooh, better not disturb Dad. He's on back of the hold line and he's about to put it in for a good one there. He's about to put her in there. Number 8, the Edge of Glory. This is another case of excellent marketing through cheesy commercials at 2 a.m. The Edge of Glory is a knife sharpener that promises to take all of your old kitchen knives and turn them into a samurai's blade. Okay, not an actual katana, but the sharpness of one. As Anthony Sullivan demonstrates in the infomercial, there's nothing it can't do. Like I said before, the Edge of Glory is just clever marketing. It doesn't do anything that other whetstones or blade sharpeners don't do, and there's no way they're going to outperform the competitor at 3 easy payments of $29.99. So call now. No, I'm just kidding. It's on this worst invention list because they slapped a new name on something that already exists, and plus, it's probably made a lot cheaper than the real stuff, and they're just begging you to bust out your credit card. So yeah, that's why it's on here. Makes sense. Number 7, the Euro Club. Back to the golf inventions because Dad, sure. Okay, let's make a scenario. It's July long weekend, and you're spending time on the golf course like all the other dads who don't want to spend time with their families. It's hot out, so you've been slamming back beers like a frat party. Plus, the older guys just want to see the beer girl come back with another round. Gross. Beer guys can be gross sometimes. Anyway, it's a busy day and you're playing between groups. All of a sudden, you have to use the washroom, but walking all the way back to the clubhouse is not an option. Thank goodness you have your Euro Club, the discreet and sanitary option for urinating on the golf course. God damn, it's gross. A thick-handled golf club fits right into your bag with the others, but it's actually a portable washroom. Look, I get it, cute idea, but I'm a man, and I know men. We'd rather just go find a bush, complete with a thick golf club and a little blanket to put over yourself so you have a little bit of privacy while you do your business. We should have one for the gym. You don't want to get a dumbbell or something, you know what I mean? That'd be, see, now there's an idea. That's a smart idea, one for the gym. Number 6, Skinny's Instant Lifts. Okay, so the Edge of Glory is shifty. It's shady, but at least it has the potential to sharpen your blades, which I think we can all agree having dull blades sucks. See, I should be a spokesman. This is a product that's not only something you have in the home, but, well, you probably have lots of it. Basically trying to pull the wool or the tape over consumers' eyes. To sum it up, Skinny's Instant Lifts are strips of adhesive tape that can fold, pull, and keep in place unwanted saggy skin, fat, and just the more flabby parts of the human body. We all get old. It happens. It's happening to me. I'm getting older. And we all don't look like we did when we were 18. I look pretty close, but I'm getting older. And we can all understand how people would hand cash over the table to look better or look like they did when they were 18. Can you blame them? You can't. That being said, taping yourself up like a 3rd grade science project isn't going to help. So, in a nutshell, they're just trying to sell you Scotch tape. It doesn't... That's a terrible invention. Let me just tape myself up here. I'm getting ready for the party in a minute. Let me just pull all this in. Yeah. No.
Number 5 is the first syringe. Hello to our pre-Columbian friends again. You guys were killing it in the invention game. Indigenous of South America were known to have fashioned a syringe using animal remains. Like with the baby bottle, a sac-like organ was used to hold the liquid. In this case, the choice was smaller animal bladders. Next, a hollowed bird bone with a sharpened tip was attached and used as a needle. How on earth indigenous peoples got called primitive is beyond me. The ability to even recognize medicines, make them injectable, and figure out the knowledge of the body in prehistoric times enough to know what would happen should it be injected and where, frankly it's remarkable. In fact, the syringe didn't show up in European medicine until the 1850s, when Scottish physician Alexander Wood thought maybe using needles to inject more could relieve pain. Right. And what medicine were the indigenous colonies using in these syringes? Number 4 is anesthetic medicines, topicals, oh my. Traditional medicine is part of cultural legacy of indigenous peoples and their purpose for more than 2,500 plant species. Like the Takana and the Leko, who use quinine, cat's claw, and avanta, all plants recognized by modern pharmaceutical industries. First Nations used olefin, hydrocarbons, and methane to make petroleum jelly and used it to hydrate and protect animal and human skin. The Amazonian and Andean indigenous people of South America pioneered the use of a variety of medicinal plants to manage ailments. An example of this is ginger. We currently use it to flavor dishes, but indigenous healers prepared it as a medicinal drink to relieve pain or reduce inflammation. Another remedy for pain and inflammation was black willow bark. Once it gets into the body, salsine produces salicylic acid, the active ingredient in modern aspirin tablets. That's right, they produced aspirin. And in modern day Virginia, Jimson weed was was ground and used as a plaster on external injuries and bruises. It could be injected or ingested as an anesthetic while broken bones were set. There are even treatments for hemorrhoids, suppositories made from dogwood trees, a material still used medicinally today. Oral contraceptives were invented when the Shoshone and Potawatomi used herbs like stone seed and dogbane to prevent pregnancy. I swear I could make an entire video about the medicines and remedies invented by indigenous people, many of which were also the first ways to brush teeth, cleanse breath, heck, even the first sunscreen was invented through indigenous healing practices. It's truly unreal what was accomplished, and I personally recommend sweet fern tea for your next stomach bug or hangover. Rubber is number 3, and no, not the contraceptive. Many don't know that natural latex is derived from plants and trees. Many also don't know that the Aztecs, Olmec, and Maya of the Mesoamerica are known to have made rubber using this natural latex. It would be harvested from rubber trees and mixed with the juice of morning glory vines. These two plants ironically would grow very close to each other, so it's believed that's how ancient civilizations stumbled across the vine's fluid containing a chemical that solidified latex so it wouldn't be brittle anymore. Depending on your latex to vine juice ratio, your rubber could differ. Some came out more bouncy, like a rubber ball used in the famous Mesoamerican ball games. Other combinations created durable leather, which was likely used for homes as well as for sandals, which were described by Spanish conquistadors that have never been found by archaeologists. When you look into Aztec civilization, it's not a surprise that they were making advanced rubber. They truly had the spirit of scientific inquiry. Number 2 is I can't hear you. Thankfully, that was no concern to the indigenous peoples, as when speakers of one language met those of another in trade, council, travels, or conflicts, they communicated in the then universal language of hand talk. It's dated past 30 years old and observed among Florida tribes by the 16th century Spanish colonizers. This is considered one of the oldest languages in North America, without a word ever being spoken. Though universal in North America, hand talk was more prominent amongst the nomadic Plains nations, earning the modern-day title of Plains Indian Sign Language, or PISL. So, if sign language was around for this long, why didn't you know, and why isn't it a worldwide language like English is? 2 reasons. 1. By the late 1800s, tens of thousands of indigenous people still used hand talk, but that changed when the federal government and Catholic Church initiated the erasure of indigenous people and culture. This destroyed the communities and history for decades to come. And 2. In the 1870s and 1880s, fierce opponents of sign language called oralists were led by the apparent Canadian legend Alexander Graham Bell on an ableist mission to ban sign language and force hearing impaired people to communicate by lip reading or learning to speak, because it was apparently more convenient for everyone else. He rightfully failed, as ASL and indigenous hand talk are still recognized and used today. He did introduce some new techniques some hearing impaired people just prefer more. McKay Cody is the first deaf researcher to specialize in North American hand talk, and today helps work with indigenous colonies and tribes to help preserve the original sign language. She's also pushing for PISL to be rightfully incorporated into mainstream education of ASL. At number 1 in the countdown, no, it wasn't the Greeks and it wasn't the Romans. How indigenous democracy made the colonial world. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy of what is now upstate New York developed a democracy made up of 6 nations, with each tribe taking care of its own governance. Consisting of 117 rules recorded on strings of wampum beads, the Great Law of Peace, an oral constitution, was designed to help the Haudenosaunee live in harmony. Dating to as early as perhaps 1142, this charter is based on community unity, liberty, and equity. It even provides for the separation of powers and outlines impeachment procedures. Should any major issue arise in a tribe that was of interest to all tribes, the 6 would convene in a middle point and to make any decisions together. Beside vesting the community with the power to choose its leaders, a right which at the time may have been unique in the world, it was even described that the ideal character of those leaders was a servant to their people rather than an overlord. You were to lead with empathy, honesty, bravery. The United States of America traces its political roots to the Declaration of Independence in 1776, but by then democracy was old news in the so-called New World. During the American Revolution, thousands of indigenous already lived under a system of governance. So, as the founding fathers began crafting a more perfect union from scratch, they followed the example of the 6 nations. This is documented in letters written by George Bush, but also acknowledged hundreds of years later in 1988 by American Congress, who who said the confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by the political systems developed by the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, as were many of the democratic principles which were incorporated into the Constitution itself, a constitution that the indigenous peoples would be left out of. Starting with the K car. Oh yeah, these babies saved early 80s Chryslers from financial decimation. Remembered fondly for being front drive, inexpensive to produce, and absolutely plebeian, this efficient series was versatile and it had many variants. It was designed to be an economy car with limited engine choices, primarily a dinky 4-cylinder engine claiming between 30 and 40 miles per gallon. The K car was the basis for multiple Chrysler vehicles once the launch of the Reliant and Aries standard entry-level vehicles pulled them out of the financial ground a little bit. There were the Dodge Aries, the Plymouth Reliant, the Dodge 400, and the Chrysler LeBaron. By the mid-1980s, however, the decision proved itself successful, with over 50% of Chrysler's profit coming directly from the K-car brands. Naturally, you could give it the classic 80s do-up. The snazzy wooden belt around the outside, the CB radio, the Landau roof, and even velour bench seats with button tufting. Ah, the 80s. As disrespected as it was versatile, the lowly K-car spread its plebeian roots and survived until 1995. For those of us who didn't see it in person, you most definitely have in movies and TV such as The Breakfast Club's Red Dodge Aries and the cool Chrysler LeBaron convertible in St. Elmo's Fire. Turn your lawn into a Trojan battlefield by playing Lawn Darts, a game where you punt a 4-inch metal spike with a handle across your lawn and ideally not into your neighbor. Childhood. Alright, so this nightmare product didn't origin in the 80s, hell it wasn't even from the 70s. Lawn darts go as far back as 500 BCE Greece and are obviously inspired by the battle and hunting weapon a spear, which is known to be given a charging or spinning start before being thrown. They were banned in 1970 initially by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, but the manufacturers challenged the ban and a compromise was reached wherein a lawn dart could no longer be marketed or sold as toys or in toy stores and had to contain the following warning: not a toy for use by children, may cause serious or fatal injury, read instructions carefully, keep out of reach of children. But it's the 80s when children could do and did do whatever they wanted with reckless abandon without any supervision. Naturally, this was the time lawn darts became a booming trend once more and fell into the hands of the irresponsible. There are 3 known deaths relating to lawn darts. The father of one victim made it his mission to get the game re-banned. His campaign had the Consumer Commission re-evaluate the injuries and deaths lawn darts had caused, and oopsie, they had misidentified how many injuries there were that had to be updated in statistics. Turns out from January of 1978 to December of 1986, lawn darts were responsible for an estimated 6,100 hospital emergency room treated injuries, and approximately 81% of the victims were under 15 years old. So yeah, in 1988 the commission voted to ban lawn darts sale completely. Now that we're done spearing the neighbors, let's play some video games on the ColecoVision. The 80s saw the advent of so many video games that we love now: Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, Super Mario Bros, Tetris, to name a few. So after nearly bankrupting itself in 1978 with the overstocked and failed Telstar units, Coleco once again entered the console market looking to dethrone the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision, the current kings of the video game hill. The ColecoVision was released in 1982. It boasted amazing specs for the time, which showed in its arcade conversions. They did 2 things to secure their success. First, the Atari 2600 contained no patented material and was made up all of off-the-shelf hardware, so ColecoVision's expansion module 1 was essentially an entire 2600 which could fit into the Coleco's expansion port, aka they stole the 2600's games without stealing them. This gave gamers access to Atari's large library of games on a newer, better device and fueled interest to swap over to the console. Secondly, Coleco reached out to Japanese-based company called Nintendo, paying $250,000 for the rights of super popular arcade game called Donkey Kong, which would become the pack-in game with the console. Between its release of August 1982 and the Christmas that year, ColecoVision sold more than 500,000 units. The console actually only went out of use when the manufacturer just shifted focus to computer games. How about we do some arts and crafts? We can use puffy paint. Back in the times where custom clothing wasn't as easily orderable online, puffy paint was amongst the hottest ways to adorn your garb with personality, alongside fabric markers and bedazzlers and airbrush and tie-dye, of course. But puffy paint took it up a notch. Unlike 2D markers and overdone rhinestones, this paint went on wet, and as it dried it lifted to become quite literally puffy. Different levels of puffy could be achieved with different paints. Really sucked when you wanted a giant pink flower to be puffy, but giant puff didn't come in pink colors. It was even better if it was glow in the dark, since visiting a roller rink without some kind of glow fashion was practically a crime. Now you could match your favorite roller skates during disco hour. Yeah, puffy paint surely turned your favorite shirt into a three-dimensional work of art, and it only started cracking and peeling off after the second wash. Amazing. A sleepover favorite was the horror hotline fad. Hotlines were a big thing in general during this time. Even kids' channels were advertising calling in to talk to your favorite cartoon character for a credit card fee that would have your parents ready to toss you out of the house. Horror hotlines in particular though, those were huge. They were genuinely 900 numbers, a premium high-rate telephone number that is charged by the minute. These lines didn't become profitable for the average person to run until 1987 when AT&T launched a national call program allowing people to make money privately off of 900 numbers. Prices were often set up at $2 for the first minute and then smaller but still substantial sums for each minute afterwards. For horror stories, this is perfect. You could keep your listener on the line, building anticipation and fear in a story that keeps them hooked, willing to pay another few cents just to hear the end. Some examples of these numbers were 1-900-909-DARE, based off of the 1976 evil horror movie that is literally about being possessed through a horror hotline, 1-900-490-DEAD, which was a zombie hotline, 1-900-660-FRED was used to listen to the terrifying dialogues of Freddy Krueger. I could go on, there's truly hundreds of these. 900 numbers tapered off due to the increased regulation in the mid-90s. This is because even though these numbers, very obviously aimed at children, did instruct anyone under 18 to ask parents for permission before calling, most did not. This resulted in some exorbitant phone bills and angry parents. The FTC made it illegal in 1993 to advertise 900 numbers to children under the age of 12 unless it was educational. Thankfully, adults are still able to use them for their version of entertainment, if you catch my drift.
Number 5. Transistors. The invention of the transistor in 1947, we don't talk about it enough. This was a major breakthrough in the field of electronics. The transistor is a semiconductor device that can amplify and switch electronic signals, and this of course paved the way for the development of modern electronics, including computers, televisions, radios, this thing that I'm talking to you on, all of that good stuff. The invention of the transistor was made by a team of scientists at Bell Laboratories, led by William Shockley. William Shockley, he's like, oh, trust me, I have to do this profession. The first transistor was made using germanium, and it was much smaller and much more efficient than the vacuum tubes that were used at the time. Yeah, believe it or not, this was a step in the right direction. This was the future. I'm looking up research about transistors while using a computer. What a weird era we're in right now. It was a weird time. Number 4. The Parthian Empire Battery. The Parthian Battery is an ancient artifact discovered in modern-day Iraq. This battery dates back to the 1st century BCE. Yeah, year 1, uno, just one. Happy New Year. It's been one of them. The battery itself is a clay jar containing a copper cylinder that surrounds a big iron rod. Looks quite unsafe, if I'm being honest. I don't know. If I saw that on the subway, I'd probably not get on. A little sketchy. The jar also contains an asphalt stopper and an electrolyte solution, and it's believed to have been made of vinegar or wine. So that was their power back then. Although the purpose of the battery is not entirely clear, it's speculated that it may have been used for electroplating, or, check this out, or for medical purposes. Yeah, medical purposes. Imagine being brought back to life thousands of years ago, and there's a guy holding this, waiting in front of you. That's jarring. You're like, did I die? Am I back? What is that? What are you holding? The Parthian Empire Battery is proof that we didn't need aliens back then to do stuff, right? Humans were more advanced than we think. Specifically, humans from ancient civilizations. They somehow figured this out. They had knowledge of electricity and electrochemistry in the year 1 AD. That's crazy. This invention challenges the commonly held belief that modern science and technology are recent developments. It's like, no, they had some shit back then for sure. Number 3, vaccines. Plagues aren't new. Random diseases that can sweep an entire country. We've seen this play out many times in history. The Black Death killed 75 to 200 million people in the 14th century. The Spanish flu in 1918, it killed 1/3 of the world's population, 50 million lives. The cholera pandemic began in 1817, and in 2010, there was another outbreak in Haiti. Couldn't get worse. Vaccines are a little important. Yeah, they go back to the 17th century when English physician Edward Jenner developed a method to protect against smallpox. Now, this was performed by injecting people with cowpox, which was a less severe disease. The practice of vaccination gradually spread throughout Europe, and by the 19th century, thankfully, vaccines were being developed for a range of diseases, including polio, measles, and tetanus. Those 3 things you really don't want at any point in your life. Vaccines have played a crucial role in preventing infectious diseases and have saved countless lives. However, there's also been a controversy surrounding their use, particularly in recent years with the rise of anti-vaccine movements. Yeah, a lot of people with Sharpies and time today. You didn't have that back in the dark ages. Bristol board wasn't a thing back then. you know. Number 2, ancient telescope. Yes, let's see some stuff. Let's see the past. The Nimrod lens. This is a 3,000-year-old rock crystal lens that was discovered, again, in modern-day Iraq. It was discovered in the mid-1800s. Just an ancient relic. Just an ancient telescope, fresh out of Zelda. There we go. Today we have the James Webb Space Telescope, but 3,000 years ago, they were more advanced than we thought. The lens is believed to have been made by a Syrian craftsman sometime around 750 BC, and it's the oldest known example of a magnifying lens. Up until then, everybody was squinting a lot, kind of like how I do with the prompter sometimes. You'll see, I'm like, ooh. The lens is quite small in size. It's about 3 centimeters in diameter, not much, and its focal length was only 12 centimeters. Again, it's no James Webb, but back then, thousands of years ago, it was something. Now, the exact purpose of the Nimrod lens is still up for debate, but it's thought to have been used for decorative or ceremonial purposes, or possibly as a magnifying glass for studying small objects. The Nimrod lens is the first example of ancient optical technology. So small. He's like, yes. The moon. Number 1, the printing press. Look, I'm no fan of homework, okay? But I get it. It's important. You gotta do it. The printing press, this is a revolutionary invention, and it was invented during the medieval period, and it allowed for the mass production of books and or pamphlets. Yeah, pamphlets were huge back in medieval times. They loved folding. Invented by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-15th century, the printing press could now reproduce text more quickly, and it was pretty cheap considering what came before. You had to hire a guy just to rewrite everything. That's gonna take ages, and it did. Took quite a few fortnights. The printing press had quite the impact on society. It enabled wider access to knowledge, the spread of ideas, and it contributed to the growth of literacy, which I guess I could use a little bit of today. That's great. The printing press played a key role in the Renaissance and the Protestant Reformation, and it may or may not have helped lay the foundation for the modern world. And I think it's probably the most important thing. I think words and ideas being spread, that's probably the most important thing. Don't you think so? Hit that thumbs up if you agree. Top 10, boom, history. Starting our list off at number 10, the wall climber. Any fans of Spider-Man out there? I've been bouldering lately, and let me tell you, the wall climber could really help my game. The wall climber ideally would do just that. Let the user climb any building without the need of a pulley system. Now this gecko-inspired invention may happen. It may just allow humans to climb any glass building. Finally, just the thing we need, right? All those sicknesses, we're like, nah, I want a Mission Impossible some buildings. I think that's more important here. Geckos can scale a wall, no problem. They're impressive, they're cute little guys. They have these plump little toes covered in microscopic bristles. Now these bristles are called setae. They allow for these licky dudes to stay on the wall all day long. Although we know the science behind them, anything we try and test on it is far too heavy. Now this new wall climber device, however, it spreads the user's weight out evenly throughout the 24 tiles that make up each plate. It feels like a moving ladder. Apparently it's not too scary to use, although I would never in my life ever touch this thing. Terrified of heights. That would trip me out. I can't even rock climb without shaking right now, let alone scale a building with gecko gloves. No thank you. Could you do this? I don't know. I've seen Mission Impossible movies and I'm like, I could do that. I could never do that. Number 9, underwater breathing. Every time I'm watching a movie and the main character is underwater, I have to participate. I have to also hold my breath as well. You know, you're not alone, Tom Cruise. I'm also underwater with you right now. Let's do this. Let's get out of here. We've all wanted an underwater breathing apparatus at some point. We've seen it in Spy Kids or Star Wars. We grew up thinking, hoping that this was gonna happen, and maybe we're finally here. We're close, at least. Triton claimed that their artificial gills could let us breathe underwater for 45 minutes straight. The deepest you could go right now is around 15 feet, which, I mean, all things considered, not bad. This product was set to launch in 2016, but they had to refund its users, so it didn't work, but we're close. We're pretty close. Number 8, the running jetpack. Are you looking to shave exactly 20 seconds off of your mile time? Well, I have the odd thing for you. Are you also okay with wearing a jetpack the entire time you're running? Perfect. This technology was originally developed as part of DARPA's program. Now they originally wanted to make soldiers on the ground run faster, which is probably pretty intimidating with Captain America coming at you. But when that didn't plan out exactly like they hoped, they scaled back to improve performance in athletes. Now Jason Crestes, a graduate student of engineering and robotics who leads the project over at Arizona State University, they believe that this is the future of where the jetpack is going. And it looks so funny. People running this fast always looks funny. I don't know. They can now shave off 20 seconds of your mile time. Running downhill already looks so silly. I can't imagine this thing added to it. Check it out. Number 7, portable record player. Remember when iPods came out and it was like a big deal? Of course, 1,000 songs in your pocket, that's like witchcraft, right? That changed the game. I mean, even now, Spotify, it's getting better and better. Portable record players back then, not so much. Not really the best invention, I don't think. Like I said, some of these suck. 8 songs in your pocket and they're all gonna scratch and get messed up. Back in the 80s, right before cassette players and Walkmans hit the street, this was the only way to listen to music on the go. So at one point in time, you had to use this and it looked so silly. That's why I had to include this. I don't think records are meant to be on your persons with headphones and like, what are you, Mozart? But a portable record player is not a good idea in any decade. In order to enjoy Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, you had to remain completely still even though you were outside, so. It wasn't really portable. It was just, you had to stay still. That would suck. How do you dance with that? You're like, ooh, I really want to move, but I can't, or else I'll ruin the party. Number 6, radiated toys. Yeah, don't put this one on your wish list next year. The Gilbert U238 Atomic Energy Lab Set. Here we go. It sure looks like fun, doesn't it, upon first glance? There's that or an Xbox. What's it gonna be? But when the company released this kit back in 1950, it was all but games. Now Gilbert, the Gilbert, who was a successful toy maker at the time, even a businessman, even a magician, he believed that his line of work should be fun yet informative, right? Kind of like Bill Nye. He's fun. He'll swear every now and then. He'll mix it up, make it aggressive for no reason. He was nicknamed the man who saved Christmas right after he convinced the US Council of National Defense to not ban toy purchases during World War I around the holiday season. So, man who saved Christmas, for sure. He's like, please continue selling during this war. I really would like that if we kept selling things and I made money. Thank you. Christmas, the Lord giving. Great. This set also wasn't cheap. It was around $50, which back in the day was more than $50 now. The price was justified as the set was actually radioactive. That's right, the Gilbert U238 Atomic Energy Lab contained a cloud chamber where you could actually see real alpha particles traveling at 12,000 miles a second. Yeah, how fun is that? You ask for a light bright, mom gives you this, you're like, guess I'm moving out. Number 5. Medicine. You can only imagine the various injuries Neanderthals would have, right? Hunting down a mammoth or a bison 3 times the size of you, yeah, odds are you're gonna get a bruise or two. More than fair. So what did Neanderthals do at this point? Is that what the pile of bones is for? I'm starting to connect this. That makes more sense. God, that's dark. How did Neanderthals live for so long without a pharmacy, right? All that yelling, no halls? Are you kidding? My throat hurts doing this list already. Neanderthal medical skills are pretty similar to what our ancestors did. Herbal remedies, that's it, right? It changes your life. They manage fevers, but when the pain got too bad, chewing on a specific tree may have helped tolerate all that pain. Yeah, 4,000 years before penicillin, Neanderthals were chewing on aspirin. Number 4, forbidden friends. Lascaux cave paintings date back to some 17,000 years ago, and a lot of the art seen on the walls of the cave art that depicts animals. It's mostly pretty much all animals. It's beautiful. About 900 of them, with just over 600 being recently identifiable. There are cattle, bison, some wild cats, bears, birds, you name it, but there are no reindeer at all. What happened, right? Did they just forget about this one specific animal out of 900, although they ate reindeer meat almost every day? Well, it took a long time to realize, but our best guess as to why they were missing from all these works of art is because these animals are ones that they never caught. Yeah, these are animals that they would dream about, right? They were always afar, just running away. They could never hunt or catch them because at this time they were too fast or too strong. Plus, at this time, they didn't have certain weapons or tools available. Yet. More than fair. I would much rather draw a bison than have to tackle one. You know what I mean? Number 3, more art. Okay, here's where we're at with Neanderthals and art. First of all, we don't have an actual representational version of their art, but we do have symbolism, which is, some would argue, the same thing. That's pretty close. And just as fascinating, really. Especially when they look like this, when they look like a masterpiece in a cave. These are eagle talons. They're about 130,000 years old, and they're found at the Krapina Neanderthal site in Croatia. And researchers believe that they were part of a jewelry set, like earrings or a part of a necklace, something like that. I couldn't even make this now with a YouTube tutorial, let alone 130,000 years ago. This is mind-blowing. Number 2, flutes. Music has been in the air for quite a long time now, and Neanderthals enjoyed a flute every now and then, it seems. Yeah, they weren't playing We Three Kings or anything like that, but they were making music as early as 50,000 years ago. Incredible. I still can't even whistle 50,000 years later. The first instrument known to man was most likely our vocal cords, but the second instrument were the flutes of Geisenkloster Cave. They're the oldest musical instruments that have ever been discovered. They're made from bird bone and ivory of a mammoth. Yeah, so if it's any indication how old they are, they made music out of mammoth ivory. Yeah, take that, Skrillex. Finally, number 1, glass. Imagine making glass. Imagine being like, oh yeah, my dad makes glass. I don't know. He's a magician, I guess. Imagine making glass for the first time. You know what I mean? Like, you're a wizard. Even if you made glass now, I would think you're a wizard. Glass blowing shows on Netflix. I'm like, you're all wizards. How do you do this? Glass that was naturally occurring, like obsidian for example, that was around and used during the Stone Age. Man-made glass was first used around 6,000 years ago. Archaeologists are pitting Lebanon, North Syria, ancient Egypt, all as the birthplace of synthetic glass. The first use of man-made glass were beads. Yeah, imagine being the first person to rock beads. Ah, the confidence. A bead door, an ancient bead door, you would be a genius. Mid-2000s BC, guy glazes up some beads. What an icon. Like I said, art comes in many different shapes and sizes. Number 10, the Fuzzy Wonder. Growing up, I had the classic red toy car. It was great. I would honk the horn, slam the door with attitude, wearing a diaper. It was the perfect invention for a youngin' like me. But back in the Victorian era, the toys or whatever, not as fun. Definitely not as fun. Fisher-Price wasn't born yet, so if you wanted to wheel around and kill time, maybe even have a few laughs, well, you had to use this, the Fuzzy Wonder. Yeah, this, let's unpack this one, shall we? This patent, I'll be honest, this patent here makes me think. It makes me wonder more than anything. Why didn't this change history? Are you kidding me? The fuzzy seat, the gears, the foot straps, the possibilities are endless with the Fuzzy Wonder. The only thing that we do know about this patent, the only hint as to who or what this was for, is written right below the product's name. It says, the Fuzzy Wonder, the champion of his species. His species? You're telling me there's more of these? Where's the Fuzzy Champion? Let's take him for a spin. He's probably got an engine. It's probably great. I go shopping riding one of these for sure. Definitely. Wheeling around, throwing stuff in. Easy. Number 9, top hat cigar holders. Yeah, this one here is so Victorian. I love it. In the Victorian era, smoking cigars was a popular pastime amongst wealthy men. If you were rich, you had to smoke cigars all day, every day, and then cough nonstop. Cigar holders, of course, were used to prevent the cigar smoke from directly entering the smoker's mouth and to keep the cigar cool and on your persons. There were various types of cigar holders during the Victorian era, ranging from simple wooden or metal tubes to more elaborate designs made of ivory, silver, or sometimes gold. Fancy schmancy. Some holders were designed to be attached at the end of a walking stick, while others could be worn as a pendant on a chain, or in this case, for some reason, a top hat. Yeah, why is there smoke coming from that man's head? I wonder if he's okay. Oh, he's just bad. That's cool. My mistake, sir. Continue on with your Victorian cigar stroll. Yeah, people's heads were smoking. They would keep all of them lit on their top hat. What a weird place to hold them. Cigar holders were often personalized with the owner's initials or family crest, and they were considered a status symbol, although it looked ridiculous on a top hat. This was a way to flex your wealth, you know what I mean? There were no broke boys walking around with top hats. No way. Or cigar holders on said top hats. No way, that's insane. That's a lot of weight on a hat. I'd be doing this a lot. Number 8, the fork and knife cleaner. In theory, in the Victorian era, this one sounds great, but it also seems like way more effort than just hand washing, you know? I don't know, let's talk about it. Invented in 1850 by Thomas Parker in Kensington, the knife and fork cleaner in the 1850s, it was pretty significant. It was a big improvement in the process of cleaning cutlery, a bit, I guess. Prior to this invention, cleaning knives and forks was a time-consuming and often challenging task. Definitely harder than it is today to wash a dish. The knife and fork cleaner consisted of a handheld device with multiple bristles and brushes and gears that would all fit around the knife or the fork, and then it would spin and move around. Again, looks like a saw trap. The user would then rub the utensil back and forth through the bristles to remove any food or debris. It took a while, and like I'm saying, a little bit more effort probably. This invention was particularly used for commercial kitchens where large quantities of cutlery needed to be cleaned quickly, so restaurants, whatever. It was also popular among households, even though it didn't last too long. It's definitely worth a mention. It looks scary more than anything. I wouldn't be like, ugh, cleaning my fork, like, don't eat my arm, thank you. Number 7, Vigor's horse action saddle. All right, now we're into it. Here we go. I mentioned the Fuzzy Wonder earlier. This thing here, Vigor's horse action saddle. Yeah, action saddle. We got some action here. There we go. This saddle would sit somewhere in your home, ideally in a place where no one else could see you. That's great, that's a start. The way they marketed this thing back then, they made it sound like it was an actual health benefit riding this big vibrator, for lack of a better term. That's all it did. It just vibrated and you sat on it. That's all I'll say. It's all I'm allowed to say. On the patent, it states that Vigor's horse action saddle can promote good spirits, it quickens circulation, it stimulates the liver, and probably other places, and it even creates an appetite. Yeah, all that in a thing that shakes you up in the corner of your house. Imagine it's the Victorian era and you have have to watch your drunk uncles take turns rotting this thing all weekend long. This is far too intimate for the family room. This is kind of gross. Yeah, it vibrates a lot and really hard, so that's it. You can do the rest. You can think the rest of the thoughts, dirty freaks. Number 6, the toilet mask. Madame Rowley's toilet mask. Okay, where do I even begin with this one? At first, I thought that this was a mask that you had to wear while you took a shit. I mean, compared to everything else on this list, I was like, yeah, sure. People would wear the Phantom of the Opera masks every time they had to go to the washroom. Probably, who knows? They were weird back then. A toilet mask was not that. I mean, not too far from that. A toilet mask was a natural beautifier for bleaching and preserving your skin. Victorian bleach. Easy, that's fun. The patent even stated that this mask would remove complexion imperfections. Complexion imperfections, see you later. Huh, what a treat. How lucky are we? All you have to do is wear this mask 3 times a week. For how long? I don't know, doesn't say. Just feel it out, I guess. Just feel out the bleach. Turns out lead cosmetics pasted onto a mask and bleach, turns out it was not beneficial for your health at all. Who knew? Not me. Yes, let me put on my bleach mask before, well, I can't breathe or see anymore. Never mind, I'm gonna stop wearing that.
Number 5, Chia. Chia Pets. I know everyone has heard of the Chia Pets. Shout out to all the gardeners out there. How are the strawberries growing this year? I hope good. Yeah. The Chia Pet is a terracotta pot filled with chia seeds that will eventually grow chia sprouts. The catch? The terracotta planter or base is almost always featuring some sort of recognizable icon. So when the chia grows, it resembles the hair, fur, or some sort of color contrasting part of that icon. Some include Chewbacca, Weird Al Yankovic, Donald Trump, Abraham Lincoln, Yoda, Baby Yoda, Scooby-Doo, SpongeBob, Shrek, Bob Ross, Homer Simpson, and many, many more icons, especially of Americana iconography. Whew, man, that's a mouthful. This one isn't the worst, you know, because you need plants around the house. You gotta have some plants. It brings the house together. It's just hard to imagine folks dishing out dough for a cool terracotta pot and a commercial tune that everybody knows. Chia. Number 4, shag carpet. On a personal level, I'm not a carpet guy. Chris, get your mind out of the gutter. Get your mind right out of that gutter, buddy. No. On a personal level, I'm not a carpet guy. I'm just too much of a man. Or at least that's what my mom says. Okay, sure, I spill food all over myself all the time, but I'm not that bad, ladies. Come on. I put the toothpaste cap back on after I'm done brushing my teeth, so I can't be that bad. I'm just a hardwood floor kind of guy. I think it looks nicer, it lasts longer, and is way easier to clean, especially when you got guys like me around. So you can understand why I put shag carpet on this list. Popularized in the late 60s and early 70s, there wasn't a home magazine around that didn't feature shag carpet. Known for its long fibers and wacky colors, the shag carpets resemble that of an animal hide that never stopped growing fur. Very popular with the hippie and free love crowds of the 60s and 70s, like I said, but it's hard to clean, ugly, and sometimes, strange enough, a tripping hazard. And I don't like that in the house. Tripping's bad. I feel the other day, it really hurt. I got a blister on my finger now, it's bad. Number 3, the lava lamp. Where would the 60s and 70s be without shag carpet and the lava lamp? It kind of goes hand in hand, along with the shag carpet. In another fad from that era, it seemed every college dorm around wasn't complete without one. That being said, they're more of an eye candy than a functional light. Invented by Edward Craven Walker as he was bored one day in a bar. So a lot of good ideas start. Sure, thanks Edward, but no one ever says, oh no, it's so dark in here, better turn on my lava lamp. You got my, right, thank you, perfect. Trouble is, to make that lava flow and that desired effect, it needs a heat source, which usually is done through a light bulb underneath the main canister of lava. Now, while most modern lava lamps are completely safe, the old ones? Well, you gotta be careful around older electronics like that, especially if you've ever seen Mythbusters. While the light bulb may not be enough heat to cause any issues, an external or excessive heat could render the lava lamp to erupt, and it's not good. See that episode of Mythbusters? Oh, it's not good. It's lethal, actually. Number 2, the Power Glove. The Power Glove. Could you really own anything more 80s than the Power Glove? The Power Glove was an accessory for the NES that allowed players to use motion controls on 2D games, complete with a retro sensor bar and number pad to input codes for your controller to work with the current game that you're playing. Well, the truth is, folks, it just sucked. It doesn't work properly, it gets sweaty and smelly easily because a lot of it's actually just a glove. At the time, there was no internet, so if you didn't have a code book or knew the code to input into the glove for your game, you literally couldn't use it to play the games that you wanted to use it for, thus rendering it useless, and I argue that's a bad invention. So silly. I'm playing with power! Number 1, Rob the Robot. Lastly, another NES accessory, except this one was for lonely Nintendo players. Basically, Rob the Robot was a second player when you didn't have one. He was battery operated and used a variety of spinning tops to push down buttons that you had, well, some control of to simulate the efforts of a second player. The issue here? Well, he requires both D and AA batteries. He's slow. Oftentimes, after extended use struggles to pick up the spinners he uses to input controls into the game. And he's officially only compatible with 2 games. Stack Up and Gyromite, which I can tell from the audience's silence right now that they've never played those games on the NES. Duck Hunt, Mario, Zelda, Stack Up? No, you didn't have Stack Up, don't lie, you didn't have it, you never had it.